then you start to get into seeding. All right. So here we go. Let's start seeding these things out. And then you'll start to see some of these at-large teams and kind of how I assigned some of these wins and losses. All right. So seeding these, I would start with number one. And if Ohio State, who's number one now, were to go 13-0, they will be the number one seed. So Ohio State is going to be our number one seed. They're the Big Ten champ. There they are. Now, as an undefeated SEC champ, this team could absolutely overtake Ohio State. But at this point, Ohio State is number one. We'll see what the committee thinks, in particular about the strength of schedule and some of those wins that Texas A&M has. But A&M in this model would be the number two seed, and there they are. Number three seed. I think the 3 and 4 seed are going to be the two teams that were able to get to the Big Ten and SEC championship games, but fell short. Their resumes are going to be outstanding. Their strength of schedules, even though people like to rip on the Big Ten strength of schedule, I think Indiana would have really good marquee wins, including that road win at Oregon. So I'm going to go Indiana at number 3 as the Big Ten runner-up. Remember, they're 12-1 at this point. And the only reason they get the 3 seed over Alabama is at this point, Alabama would be an 11-2 team. 11-2, Alabama would get the 4 seed, and there are your 4 byes automatically into the quarterfinals. I just wish that those teams could also host games in the quarterfinals, and we didn't have to play at neutral sites like we're going to do this year. More on that in just a moment. Now, we also have to place another champ here, and I think that in this model, Miami at 12-1 as an ACC champ would get the 5th seed. Okay, I do think the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get the benefit of the doubt, and Miami would get that 5th seed, so there they are hosting a first-round game. Now you start getting into some of the at-large teams, because in this scenario, I think there are going to be some teams that are likely in a position where they will be rated above both Texas Tech, who's a champion, and South Florida. And the South Florida one is fairly obvious. Let me just talk to you before I place these teams in a bracket and kind of where I have some teams in where they're going to be sitting at the end of the year. I think Georgia has a good chance to be an 11-1 team, 7-1 in the SEC. I think Ole Miss has a really good chance to be an 11-1 team, 7-1 in the SEC. So they're not getting into the SEC championship game, but 11-1 through the SEC is going to be very, very highly respected in that committee room. We know that. In this model, I've got Vandy at 9-3, Texas at 8-4, Tennessee at 10-2. Look at their schedule. I think they're going to be at 10-2, possibly 6-2 in the SEC. And I've got OU as an 8-4 team. In the Big Ten, Ohio State and Indiana, they're already in 13-0, 12-1. If you look at Oregon's schedule, it's actually very difficult coming down the stretch. They still have to play at Iowa. They've got to play USC. They've got to play at Washington. Those are all teams that I think at this point are underrated teams. I'm very interested to see where the committee is actually going to put those teams, because again, I think that the AP is undervaluing the top middle of the Big Ten at this point, and I think that the committee is actually going to value them properly. At least they should. They've got the metrics necessary to do that. If you actually look at some of the metrics out there that are not just tied to the AP or narrative from certain networks, what you actually see is like the Sagarin ratings and other models. They have the Big Ten rated much higher. In particular, that middle top tier of the Big Ten, your Iowas, your Michigans, your USCs, and your Washingtons. So because of that, Oregon's going to have this really difficult trip down the month of November, 3 of those teams in November, including a trip to Kinnick, which is, as you all know, very difficult. Indiana was in a 13-13 game with them late into the fourth quarter. Because of that, everyone just assumes Oregon's going to be an 11-1 team. I actually think that they go 10-2. So I've got Oregon as a 10-2, 7-2 in the Big Ten. I've got Iowa as a 9-3. I think Michigan in this, because I gave Ohio State that win, is going to be 9-3, and cue all the Wolverine fans yelling in the comments about 4-0 in the last 4 years. And then USC as an 8-4, 6-3 in the Big Ten. So that's how I kind of played out the Big Ten. So once you have those records, now you can start getting into some of this at large, and you start to see where I'm headed with this. Miami was at 5, okay? And at 6, Georgia's an 11-1. They're going to be an at large right there, so they're at 6. And candidly, 5, 6, 7, 8, all of these could probably flip-flop places. So this seeding is not going to be super accurate. But again, if you look at this situation, if you look at these schedules, I really like kind of the direction of this. 7, 12-1, Big 12 champ, Texas Tech would be in at number 7. And again, 5 through 7, you can mix those seeds up all you want. You can put Texas Tech at 5, sure. Maybe Miami gets a bye. I'm not sure. Maybe Bama is sitting there at 5. Those seedings, but these are the teams that I'm really projecting to be in this thing. At number 8, remember, I still have Ole Miss at 11-1. That's easily in the playoff, and they would be in there in this one as the 8 seed. Now, let's pause and skip ahead, because what we're going to come down to is a bunch of teams vying for the at-large spots. And I've already mentioned all of them and their records, so bear with me here. The 12th seed in this model is going to be the Group of 6 champion, which is South Florida. So let's go with 12, South Florida. They're going to be going to Miami. Yes, I know, stop yelling. They already went there. I get it. But they're going to go to Miami, and they're going to play the Canes. So there's South Florida, which leaves 3 spots. Now, here we go, and here's where the rubber meets the road. This is where it actually gets really fun, because if you play it out, as I did right there, okay, the SEC, the Big Ten, you've got this Virginia thing going on. You've got a Cincinnati thing going on. You might have a Utah thing going on, a Houston thing going on. Here's where we're at. There's 3 spots, and there are 6 teams, 6, that have 2 losses. You've got Georgia Tech coming off an ACC championship game loss. You've got BYU coming off of a Big 12 championship game loss. Those 2 teams are 11-2. You've got Oregon as a 10-2, did not play in their conference championship game. Tennessee as a 10-2 in the SEC. Notre Dame as a 10-2 as an independent, and potentially Utah as a 10-2 out of the Big 12, not in the Big 12 championship game. Wildness. 3 spots, 6 teams. Where do we go? Where do we go? Let's start with this. Process of elimination. Utah did not play in the Big 12 championship game. It's not a league that we probably think that there's going to get multiple teams, so Utah would be eliminated. Now there's 5 teams, 3 spots. 2 have to go home. I think I'm going to select the team first that I have a really good feeling would get in, and that would be Tennessee. They would be coming off an undefeated November. They would be rising up the committee's rankings every single week, and Tennessee at a 10-2 would be my 9 seed right there against Ole Miss. So there's Tennessee. They're in. 2 spots left. We've got 4 teams. We're deciding between Georgia Tech at 11-2, BYU as 11-2. You've got Oregon at 10-2 and Notre Dame at 10-2. Let me just put the next team in, and let's get to the last spot and start talking about this. I believe that, again, the committee is going to value the Big Ten properly, and in particular that November for Oregon is going to be very difficult. And even though I'm assigning them a loss in November, I do think that they're going to be comfortably inside of this mark where they're not going to have to sweat the last spot. So I'm going to go Oregon as a 10-2. They're in as the 10 seed, and they would go to Texas Tech. Now we have 3 teams, 1 spot left. Georgia Tech, BYU, Notre Dame. Now, in this scenario, folks, I think you have to go to the losses. BYU in this scenario would have lost to Texas Tech twice. They're my 7 seed. Georgia Tech would have lost to Georgia, the 6 seed, and Miami, the 5 seed. Notre Dame would have lost to Miami, the 5 seed, and A&M, the 2 seed. Process of elimination, they would be riding the back of 10 straight wins. The value of that, I think, puts Notre Dame in as the 11 seed. And on the outside looking in, you would have Georgia Tech and BYU. It's crucial that BYU wins one of these games against Texas Tech and wins the Big 12. Crucial. Now, could they get in if they were an undefeated and then lost the Big 12 championship game? Possibly. and probably that would be a likely as a one loss. So this game against Tech in November is going to be a massive game for BYU. Similarly, Georgia Tech, I don't think that they can survive 2 losses, in particular late. So even if they're able to go undefeated in the ACC, that game against Georgia acts as a play-in game for me. And if they were to lose that and lose to Miami, I think on the back of 2 straight losses, they would be falling down. Notre Dame on the back of 10 straight wins would be climbing up the rankings. And there you have it. There you have it. Those are my 12 teams in the college football playoff. And here's the matchups. I've got Oregon or South Florida at Miami. That's a rematch. Notre Dame at Georgia. That's a rematch of last year's quarterfinal. I think we would all love to see that. I've got Oregon at Tech and Tennessee at Ole Miss. SEC matchup, but they didn't play each other in the regular season. Those would be amazing. And now, if you actually just played it out one step further, last year, all the home teams, I should say, won those games in the first round. So that could look like Ohio State versus an Ole Miss, could be Tennessee, rematch of last year's first round if it was Ohio State, Tennessee. You would have A&M against the winner of Tech, Oregon. That game's at Tech, so it could be an interstate A&M Tech matchup. You would have Indiana against the winner of Georgia, Notre Dame. That would be incredible. It could be a rematch of last year's first round with Notre Dame or Indiana, Georgia. And Alabama would play the Miami, South Florida winner, and that would obviously be great. And by the way, can I just say, put the quarterfinal games on campus. Put them on campus. No one wants to see like Ole Miss play Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. Like, I don't want to see that. Nobody does. But do you want to see Ole Miss go to Columbus? Yes. Yes. Do you want to see Tech have to go to A&M interstate? Absolutely. You want to see Oregon have to go to A&M? Yes. Obviously, Kyle Field's a great home field advantage. Give these teams the reward that they earned during the regular season. Put the quarterfinals on campus. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. The bowls are like Blockbuster. The playoff is like Netflix. It's not Netflix's job to look after Blockbuster as Blockbuster's business is dying. Period. All right? Make something new. Create something new. Indiana at home versus Georgia or Notre Dame. That would be obviously great. Indiana is undefeated under Cignetti at home, and Bama at home versus Miami or South Florida. Yes, and more yeses. Obviously, no one wants to see those games in corporate, stale environments in the bowl settings. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.